Welcome everyone! Today I'll share a game from a unique man versus machine match, the first match between Deep Blue and Kasparov played in Philadelphia in 1996. This is the first game of that match and Deep Blue opened with e4, c5, the Sicilian, of course a favorite of Kasparov's, and c3. So Deep Blue is avoiding the sharper variations of the open Sicilian that Kasparov was specialized in. d5. Since c3 doesn't directly take control over the center, black has a chance to take some for himself. Pawn takes, queen takes, d4, knight to f6, knight to f3, bishop to g4, getting the bishop out before playing e6, bishop to e2 breaks the pin, e6, h3, bishop to h5, castles, knight to c6, just putting pressure on d4, bishop e3 defending d4, black traded and played bishop to b4. So this is developing the bishop and planning to reroute it to b6, a3, bishop to a5, knight to c3, developing with a tempo on the queen, queen to d6, and knight to b5. So Deep Blue has to keep the initiative because if black gets a chance to castle, he could have problems defending the weak d-pawn. Now the queen ducked to e7, and as we will see, this probably wasn't the best square for the queen. Maybe better was retreating the queen to b8, and if here knight to e5, trade on e2, castles, bishop to g5, hoping to damage the kingside pawns. Here black can trade on e5 and go knight to d5 and then just kick the knight with a6 and the knight has to retreat since after knight to d6 black just goes bishop to c7. Now compare this with queen to e7, so after knight b5, queen e7, white again goes knight to e5, they trade on e2, castles, rook a to c1, and rook a to c8, both bring the rooks to the half-open c-file. But after bishop to g5 here, with the queen on e7, you can see that the pin of the knight was pretty awkward, so another square for the queen maybe was better. Bishop to b6, just getting the bishop to the planned diagonal, but now Deep Blue played bishop takes f6. And now black has to capture with the pawn, since after queen takes, there's of course a fork on d7. So therefore after bishop f6, pawn takes f6, and now knight to c4. So maybe Kasparov at first thought white couldn't play this because of the weak d-pawn, but black cannot take that pawn because after knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes, there's queen g4 check, and that wins the bishop. So therefore not taking, but rook from f to d8, just pressuring the d-pawn. Knight takes bishop, ab. Now black has a ruined pawn structure on both sides of the board. Rook from f to d1, covering the pawn. f5, planning queen to f6. Queen to e3. And queen to f6, but after d5, black's pawns are just ruined completely. Rook takes pawn was played, but after rook takes, e takes, it's hard to imagine worse pawns than this. Deep Blue played b3, just making sure the queen cannot capture the pawn, and the tempo doesn't really matter because Kasparov's weaknesses are permanent. It's not like his position can be repaired because of that one call move. Now Kasparov played king to h8, hoping to get some play on the g-file, and Deep Blue just captured the b-pawn. Computers have no fear. The computer just saw it wouldn't get checkmated, so it might as well take a free pawn. Rook to g8 as planned, queen to c5, and d4. And that probably was just too slow given black's poor position. White played knight to d6, f4, getting that attack or hoping to get an attack, and knight takes pawn. Once again the machine just grabs another pawn since black has no real attack. Now the game continued for a bit, but is basically already over. Knight to e5 was played, queen to d5 preventing knight f3 check, f3 instead, but now just g3, and maybe Kasparov was hoping he could play queen to f4, hoping for rook takes g3 check, but white just defends with rook to c8, and the rook cannot be taken because the queen would be hanging. And now after queen g5, just saving the queen, and rook to c5, black just has no attack at all. Now therefore, instead of that, after g3, he played knight to d3, Deep Blue played rook to c7, rook e8, trying to involve the rook into the attack, knight to d6, check, king to h2, but after knight takes f2, knight f7 check, the game soon ended. Kasparov played king g7, knight g5 discovered check, and after king to h6, rook takes pawn check, Kasparov resigned the game. It could have continued with king to g6, but then queen g8 check, king f5, and knight takes f3, and since g2 is now available to the king, black cannot give checkmate. So very interesting game, but of course the man versus machine matchup garnered much interest in general around the world as well. Kasparov did win the first match in '96, but in '97 he was soundly defeated by an improved Deep Blue, and Kasparov, being who he is, complained that the Deep Blue team had somehow cheated, but there was never any evidence of that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this game too. New games are coming your way soon, and as always, thank you for watching Chess Student and take care.